Romans chapter 12, verse 1. I urge you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies a living and holy sacrifice, acceptable to God, which is your spiritual service of worship. The God word for today is sacrifice. We're going to look at the word holy also, and in the translation that I'm using, the New American Standard Bible, the word holy comes prior to the word sacrifice as an adjective. If we go back to the language that the Apostle Paul used, Greek, when he was writing, the word holy is actually following sacrifice. The word order is different. So in the Greek it actually says a sacrifice which is living, holy, acceptable to God. So I'm going to start with the word sacrifice and combine it with living because they work together. The word living is obviously an important word, but in this context it's united to the word sacrifice and probably doesn't need its own conversation. The word holy, however, is kind of separated. Yes, it's used as an adjective, but I think it's important for us to look at the word holy on its own, and so the word holy will be in a separate conversation in this series of God words, theological vocabulary that helps us understand the fellowship into which God has called us. So today we're looking at this word, sacrifice. It's very clearly translated sacrifice. Every place we read about it, every place it's used in the scriptures. It's an Old Testament concept. It's a concept that we find way back at the beginning of Genesis. And it's a concept that is fairly common to almost all cultures until recent, what we might call modern days. Our new world, and I don't know how far back do we really go, depending on where in the world we are, and there are places in the world still today where particular cultures have literal sacrificing. We think of it though as kind of an old world concept, but it's a term that is throughout the scriptures, and a term that we find in the New Testament regularly in a variety of contexts, so it's important for us to understand this word. The other translation of the word might be an offering, and yet the word sacrifice seems to carry with it a more serious sense. It's more than just a giving that an offering might be. It's really a giving that carries with it some cost. That someone has said that it's not a sacrifice if it doesn't hurt. So if we are simply giving out of our abundance and there is nothing painful, nothing negative in the giving to us, not that giving should be negative, but in terms of when I give, if I don't feel anything when I give it because I have so much abundance that I don't even miss the giving, that could be an offering. But that's not a sacrifice. That in the sacrifice, there is a giving that costs me something. And so we find this principle, something that is a part of the life of God's people, and we find really the first sacrifice spoken of specifically back with Cain and Abel. That they each sacrificed to God, that Cain sacrificed from produce of the earth, Abel sacrificed from his animals, and the account back in Genesis doesn't specifically say why it was that Cain's offering was not accepted, that Abel's offering was. And it appears, however, that the that the acceptance of the offering was not, or the sacrifice was not what was sacrificed, but what was the intent of the one who sacrificed. And it appears, as we look at the conversation that God had with Cain, that there was something wrong in Cain's heart, and that Cain was not giving in a way that showed that he desired to be in fellowship with God. Instead, we see Cain in a spirit of rebellion, and God counsels him that sin is desiring to control him, and that Cain needs to resist that sin. And we find, as we read the story, that Cain does not resist the call of sin in his life, and he commits what we read as the first murder. Then throughout the history of the people of Israel, we see sacrifices. And God institutes into the life of his people, the people of Israel, a sacrificial system, where every morning and every evening a lamb is brought, and its blood is taken from the animal as the animal's life is taken from it, and that is offered to God as a morning sacrifice and an evening sacrifice. We also see very specific ordinances on one day of the year, on what we call the Day of Atonement, that the priest was to sacrifice a bull for himself as a giving to God, asking God for the forgiveness for his own sins, and then a goat to be sacrificed for the people. Also, we see that God commanded his people that whenever they broke one of the commandments, that they were to make an exchange for their forgiveness by bringing an animal, that to show their repentance, they had to give something of value to God. And what we find in all of those Old Testament pictures is not that we can even offer God something of value in exchange for the forgiveness of our sins. But what we find that God was doing in setting up that whole system was pointing us to Jesus. Jesus, who became the final and perfect sacrifice to appease God's wrath. And so you can find, if you look through this playlist, the word wrath and an explanation of what that means, and propitiation, which is the word that the Bible uses for the sacrifice to appease the wrath of God. And we find that the New Testament talks about Jesus offering himself as a sacrifice for the forgiveness of our sins. Now, in Romans, as we are applying God's mercies, God's compassions to us, and I have a conversation on the word mercy and a conversation on the word compassion. You can find those in the playlist. We are seeing that we then are also being called to be sacrifices, but we notice that we have the word living attached to it. That we are to offer ourselves, and Paul uses here the word body, that we are to offer our bodies. So this is not merely an intellectual exercise. This is something that we are to do physically as we live out our physical lives in this physical world. That we are to give up ourselves, our living selves, to God. That we are to become the sacrifice. And we do this not in order to gain God's favor, not in order to gain from God the forgiveness of sins, because his compassions and his mercies have already done that for us. But it is based on his giving to us first. The fact that he did offer himself as the sacrifice for our sin. Now we are called on in the new person to offer ourselves a living sacrifice. And again, then, we're connecting it to something of cost, of value. That we offer ourselves to God, not out of our abundance as something superfluous, something extra on the side, but that we offer ourselves in completeness. That we are called, because of what God has done for us, because of the change that God has worked in us, putting to death our old nature, raising to life a new nature, that it is now the character of the new nature to give itself alive to God. And so that is the sense here of this word sacrifice, that we are giving ourselves, our complete and full selves, recognizing that it costs us something. That is, that it costs us our will, it costs us the desires of our old nature, that as we've been transformed, as God works sanctification, and we'll talk about that more in our next conversation when we look at the word holy, that as he works that in us, it is now our nature, our character, to give ourselves to God's service. And as we continue to look at Romans chapter 1, verse 12, we'll also look not only at holiness, but also at the fact that this is our form of worshiping him, to give ourselves as a living sacrifice. Thank you for being a part of the conversation, and God bless you.